This program is brought to you by cable franchise fees and generous donations from viewers like you.
I want to extend my warmest welcome to all of you for this third annual Juneteenth celebration here in Amherst. My name is William Harris, and I'm delighted to facilitate this morning's program. I'm also a descendant of Christopher Thompson of the 5th Cavalry, who is one of the Civil War era soldiers who is interred here in Amherst in West Cemetery. We had intended to have a program today, but the weather didn't collaborate, but actually rain is a blessing. And it provides life and nutrition and all the things that we need to live. And we're so thankful to the Amherst Women's Club for opening their doors on very short notice and enabling us to gather today in celebration. So first off, let's give them a warm round of thanks. Today's program and the activities over this weekend are really spearheaded by the Ancestral Bridges Foundation, which was established by my cousin Anika Lopes. And Aniki, where are you? I want to be sure you are recognized. She's probably... And I also want to acknowledge all of the board members who are part of the Ancestral Bridges. Would you all just stand for a moment to just recognize and thank you for your time? I really applaud Amherst for recognizing all the people who are contributing to our current community and society here, and how we create a better life through collaboration, through inclusion, and through recognizing all who contributed to our past. And we can't change history. History has happened. We're informed by it. We're composed of that history. And through our veins run the history of our ancestors. I also want to acknowledge some of the leaders here in the state of Massachusetts who helped make this possible. Christine Alecco, who is the Western Mass Director of Governor Haley, Senator Joe Comerford, State Representative Mindy Dobb, Amherst City Council President Lynn Dreisner. Please give them a round of applause. And so this would not be a complete celebration without some kind of expression of the history of what contributed to the success of the Civil War for the Union.
T, halt. Left face. Thank you. Yes, it is. Thank you.
So warm welcome to the Cedar Breaks Brigade, who represent our ancestors, who are part of both the 54th Regiment and also the 5th Cavalry.
That was cool.
We're now going to celebrate the beginning of this with a very special song by the Amherst Gospel Choir.
Thank you, William.
Trust those good for the right.
Early on Palm Sunday, the 2nd of April, Dr. Donald Brown entered the gates of heaven. On behalf of Deb Bridges, his student, Dr. Kamal Ali, his colleague, Senate President Emeritus Stan Roosevelt, his friend, and Anika, his daughter. We're happy to share this celebration with you. It was Don's hopefulness that characterized his life and lifted up each student, each colleague, and each loved one to achieve dreams, no matter what the challenges, assuring us that we would and shall overcome. Donald Brown was a virtuous man. Like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Don was inspired by the gospel lessons of St. Paul, who, in his letter to the Corinthians, wrote of the remaining virtues of faith, hope, and love. Don's faith burned so brightly and so strongly that no amount of water could put it out. Don's hope, his radiant star, helped change every institution that he touched for the better. Springfield College, the University of Massachusetts, the Department of Youth Services, Boston College, in achieving social justice. And as St. Paul wrote, the greatest of these virtues is love. Don saw the beauty of each person, soul, which in turn helped him see in us God's beauty in us. He was the spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. Don also had a backbone of moral steel. When Don faced injustice, nobody, no institution could push him back or push him over. But like Dr. King, Don kept no record of wrongs past. His goal was never revenge, but a world of justice. Here in Massachusetts, and here in Amherst in particular, Don became the youngest director of all of the hundreds of upward bound programs across the entire country. Wow. He helped young people, Black, Hispanic, white, to overcome the oppression of economic poverty and to be able to achieve their dreams in 19 communities, urban and rural, across Western Massachusetts. During his 27 years at Boston College, Don incorporated the first AHANA program in the entire country, which has been replicated across this entire nation. When I spoke at Don's homecoming in California a little over a month ago, I spoke to his grandchildren, Andrew Jr. and Jordan. And I asked them When you go to the beach and see the waves coming onto the shore, think of your grandfather. Each of those never-ending waves represents the generations of people whose lives Don helped save and are the tribute to his beautiful, miraculous life. We are thankful for the life of our beautiful, beloved brother, Dr. Donald Brown.
Yes, yes, yes.
Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Carly Tartikoff to the podium to share her poem.
Being 84, that's me. I'm 84 and 1/2. And I expect, yeah. Being 84 and 1/2, I expect that I will not live long enough to see the real freedom that Nina sang about. And I wish I could see. And many of you might. And then when you eventually catch up with me, take my hand and draw me close and tell me what it feels like, what it means to go out at night and feel safe, and not worry about our children driving, walking, shopping, sleeping while being black or brown, or not having people accept you at your word, or believe that you really do have a PhD, and that you do know something, that you do bleed red blood, and that we hurt. Collective trauma, you know, is a real thing. Tell me how you, when you catch up with me, tell me how you kept on and made a way for those who came after you. And tell me how you have come to celebrate Juneteenth, America's second Independence Day, and one that is my Independence Day too. Juneteenth, the one more of us can celebrate together. Say it with me, come on. Juneteenth. Yes, I'm talking to you, and you, and you, and all of you. Say it with me again. Juneteenth. Today we ended enslavement and the rule of slave masters. Juneteenth, say it again. Juneteenth. As we envision together those who are still left out of the American independence and how we can bring them in, I want you to tell me how you kept on keeping on and made a way for those that came after you. That is my poem.
We're discovering all kinds of things about the history of this remarkable region of Massachusetts and the United States and the world. And so part of our discovery has been developing a closer relationship and better interpreting what's happened in the life of Emily Dickinson. And so I'm so delighted now to invite to the podium Jane Wald, who is the executive director of the Emily Dickinson Museum, to share a few words about the museum and its discoveries around Juneteenth and the life of Emily Dickinson.
Good morning. Good morning to all of you. It's an honor to be here with you. I'd hoped to welcome you to the Emily Dickinson Museum on a bright, sunny afternoon for a picnic lunch in the middle of your walking tour, but weather and climate being what they are, asserted themselves, and so we're here at the Amherst Women's Club across the street. Together with the Italianate house next door, these two buildings were known in the 19th century as the Hills Houses, built by father and son, who owned and operated the Palm Leaf Hat Factory located directly across Main Street. It employed hundreds of laborers and put a decidedly different industrial stamp on the village we think of as dominated by an educational ethos and a determinedly bucolic atmosphere. Our surprise about the intensity of industrial activity in the town center is accompanied by an incomplete understanding and sometimes hidden histories of residents who were far from the status and privilege of the Dickinson family. In the fall of 1865, just a few months after Juneteenth, the closest Emily Dickinson came to acknowledging such events was in a letter to her close friend, Elizabeth Holland, whose husband Josiah was a journalist, editor, and author. Josiah had recently published A Life of Abraham Lincoln, which at that time was being translated into German. So Emily Dickinson's remark, just to tell Elizabeth, and this is a quote, to tell the dear doctor we mention him with a foreign accent, party already to transactions, spacious and untold. And that's the end of the quote. A little enigmatic, I guess, quite oblique. The foreign accent she mentions is a thoroughly vague reference to this German translation of A Life of Abraham Lincoln. However, another important person in Emily Dickinson's life was the radical minister Thomas Wentworth Higginson, who became colonel of the 1st South Carolina Volunteers, later known as the 33rd United States Colored Troops, the first authorized Union regiment composed of former slaves. During this time, he became Emily Dickinson's trusted literary mentor, a companion, if you will, on her poetic journey. But their correspondence, even though he was in the midst of battle and war, their correspondence seldom noted political issues or the conduct of war. Dickinson's poetry at that time, she was writing profusely. More and more of her poems are being able to be connected with references to the Civil War itself. But her poetry often was observed the atrocities of battle, blood-soaked fields, extreme loss and tragedy, seldom political issues. Now at the Emily Dickinson Museum, we are committed to uncovering and sharing histories that need to be told. The Thompsons, who were part of the brigade that went to Texas, their family members worked with the Dickinsons. Emily Dickinson's freedom, her freedom to become a poet, was supported, in a sense, by the labor of those who worked for the family. These are histories that need to be told, and part of today's program will be a presentation of research by Pete Reddington, a museum guide, about the influence of Black musicians on Emily Dickinson's musical landscape, which is a wonderful fit with the story of Gil Roberts, and it is a privilege to follow the performance of the gospel choir. It's an honor to offer this research to you at today's commemoration of Juneteenth. These stories, these histories are intertwined with the history of our community and developing the context for all of our ancestors here in Amherst and all of our histories fills out, I think, a greater understanding of what we can do and where we can go in the present day. As part of this special day, from 1 to 2 p.m., the Emily Dickinson Museum welcomes you all to an open house to enjoy a complimentary admission to the homestead for a self-guided experience that can be facilitated by guides in each space. If possible, some of you may have had obtained some admission before, prior to this moment, but in order to kind of speed up your entry into the house, there are QR codes. One is on the piano over here, and one's on a table back in the hallway. If you want to use that QR code to just kind of register yourself for the open house, that'll make it a smoother process for you to get into the house, which can sometimes become a little bit of a bottleneck. If you don't have a smartphone, you can instead check in at the front desk at the homestead. And if you are able to arrive before 2 p.m., be sure to let the staff know that you're here from the Juneteenth event, and you'll be welcomed with open arms. Thank you for being here today, and I hope that next year we might be on the grounds at the Emily Dickinson Museum under a sunny sky. Thank you.
I now would like to turn the microphone over to a team member from the Emily Dickinson House, Pete Reddington, who's going to give us a little background and history around the influence of African Americans on Emily Dickinson.
Thank you. Happy to be here. A little nervous. I'd like to begin with a quote from jazz musician Eric Dolphy. When you hear music, after it's over, it's gone, in the air. You can never capture it again. One evening in 1854, after finishing her household chores, Emily Dickinson embarked on a stroll about town. Then I worked until dusk, Dickinson wrote to her brother Austin, then went to Mr. Sweetser's to call on a buyer root, then walked around to Jerry's and made a call on him, then hurried home to supper. Jerry is believed to refer to Jeremiah Holden, who worked as a stableman for the Dickinsons. In the second half of the 19th century, between the Evergreens and the homestead, the Dickinsons employed about 80 servants, most of them from the black community or Irish immigrant community. What was the intention of Dickinson's stroll that day? Was she meandering through town haphazardly or calling on these households with a purpose in mind? What would she have seen and heard on her excursions about town? Scholar George Boswick notes, it was not unusual for Dickinson to visit the homes of these servants, witness their music making, and borrow from it for her own inspiration and enjoyment. What did the musical landscape of Emily Dickinson's Amherst look and sound like? And how was it reflective of American culture at that time? And how was this musical culture influenced by African Americans, particularly those who worked for the Dickinsons and other prominent families like them? Dickinson, who played the piano. White Americans' frenzy for the music of black Americans is well documented in this period, even as white Americans sought to uphold imagined racial hierarchies. This cultural dissonance was most often reflected in the popular minstrel music and performance of the day. Dickinson, who played the piano, also collected over 100 pieces of printed piano sheet music, often including minstrel music marketed as plantation songs to the parlor audience of the privileged white class to which her family belonged. Even though it was masquerading as farce and comedy and dance in the form of music, says jazz musician and musical scholar Wynton Marsalis, and it seemed like it was uncomplimentary. Actually, there was something centrally American about it. And that was the beginning of a long relationship between blacks and whites, and black entertainment and white appropriation of it, and the strange dance that we've been doing with each other since really the beginning of our relationship in America. An incredibly popular genre, minstrel troupes traveled the country performing in cities and small towns alike. These smaller performance venues could be found in the Connecticut River Valley. Whether Dickinson or any member of her family attended any of these minstrel shows is not yet known, but such shows were often advertised and reported in the local newspapers they routinely read. Lyrics of popular minstrel tunes like Old Dan Tucker were often adapted for various political and social causes. A variation of the tune was sung by the popular abolitionist group Hutchinson Family Singers. It went, "Get out of the way, every station, clear the way for emancipation." The Hutchinson Family Singers were allied with the Northampton Association of Education and Industry, the utopian abolitionist community in nearby Florence, and performed in Dickinson's Connecticut River Valley multiple times, including in Amherst. They also performed at the Mount Holyoke Female Seminary while Dickinson was a student there, though it cannot be said for certain whether or not she attended the concert. The first church serving Amherst Black community was the Zion Chapel, built in 1869 on Amherst College property. But the members of the church had been worshiping together at various homes of parishioners since 1825. Music was always a central aspect of both social gatherings and religious services. White churches in Dickinson's Amherst also hosted convents by Black Glee clubs such as the Fisk Jubilee Singers, who performed at First Church, where the Dickinson family were members, multiple times. The first time they replaced the choir at First Church on Sunday morning, writes scholar James Tryon. This visit was shortly after the Civil War when they sang Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. The congregation was particularly moved by their deep, sweet voices because many in the Puritan congregation had sent sons to war with the South who had not returned. One such soldier was Fraser Stearns, family friend of the Dickinsons and son of the president of Amherst College, the Reverend Dr. William Stearns. Fraser Stearns served with the 21st Regiment of Massachusetts Volunteers. Charles Thompson, an African-American who worked with the Stearns family, went with him, laboring as a servant of the regiment's assistant surgeon. Thompson was also a skilled musician who played the fiddle. In 1857, Charles Thompson married Eliza Anthony, who became Eliza Thompson. Eliza Thompson often worked at the Dickinson house when they hosted the annual Amherst College commencement tea. Charles and Eliza's marriage was performed by William Stearns. After the war, Thompson worked as head janitor at Amherst College as he would for the rest of his life. In 1902, in part in an effort to raise money for an aging Charles Thompson, Fraser Stearns' sister, Abigail Eloise Stearns Lee, wrote her recollections about him in Professor Charlie, a sketch of Charles Thompson. She described him teaching many of the local children, including her brother Fraser, to dance and play the fiddle. But it was Charlie's musical ability that made us love him as a companion in the evening, for Charlie owned a fiddle, and when he played Money Musk or some lively jig, the children could not help dancing, she wrote, noting that her brother Fraser tried to play. Writing to her cousin Louise Norcross in March of 1862, Dickinson references the musical abilities of the recently deceased Fraser Stearns. We will play his tunes, maybe he can hear them. Both Dickinson and Stearns were known to improvise on the piano. Another musical member of Amherst Black community was Perry Roberts, who was born into slavery in Maryland and emancipated as a child. Roberts worked as a janitor in late third for Amherst College. One of his children was Gil Roberts, who became a world-renowned jazz musician. Whether or not Charles Thompson, Perry Roberts, or other Black musicians led more formal dance gatherings in and around Amherst is unknown, but during Dickinson's lifetime, such a practice resembling a hoedown or a square dance was common. Sometimes dance gatherings were held in a local barn. In August of 1858, the Hampshire and Franklin Express ran a lengthy article describing just such a barn dance on the property of a Mr. Cowles that featured an unknown musician. In 1861, the Hampshire and Franklin Express included a notice that 3 unnamed dance instructors would be offering lessons on the property of an A.P. Howe. This appears to be the same A.P. Howe whose barn was later used as a makeshift hospital when the mostly Black and Irish residents of the downtown Amherst tenement building known as the Beehive were relocated due to an outbreak of smallpox. A year later, the Beehive was demolished by its new owners. This practice appears to have been an agreement of the sale. The old Beehive yielded to the pressure of circumstance on Saturday last and came down, the Hampshire and Franklin Express reported, in July of 1865. Only a pile of debris marks the spot where it once proudly reared its walls. The melodious sounds which oft-times filled the midnight air no longer hover over it, and busy feet no longer tread the mazy dance through its spacious halls. As depicted in the article, the Beehive was a site of frequent music making and dancing right in the middle of downtown Amherst. The Amherst of Dickinson, Roberts, Stearns, and Thompson was full of music, and Emily Dickinson's musical interest was representative in America, where a privileged white audience were both intrigued by the music being played by members of the Black community, but determined to feel superior to the members of this community as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so wonderful to recognize that Amherst and the community of Amherst and the people here have such a rich history and have contributed so much to the quality of our lives. I want to take a moment to speak a little bit about my grandfather, Gilbert Roberts, or his name was actually Robert Gilbert Roberts, and he went by Gilly. And he was such a remarkable man, and we were so blessed to have him on earth for 106 years. And he was someone that was referenced, who became a very famous jazz musician, traveled internationally, and was always very humble and unassuming. And I had the great fortune of being like him in some ways, because I was the one that kind of left the area and traveled around the world. And so we had a really close connection. And when I'd visit him, we'd always sit and he would share stories with me, and my mother would always say, "He never told me that growing up." So she kind of got to know him as well, but he felt like an empathy with that sense of adventure and going out and understanding the world. But Gilly is commemorated in West Cemetery on the mural at some historic wall. He was someone who could relate to anyone of any age. He had remarkable experiences in his life after leaving Amherst. He was raised in a very musical family, as you heard. His father had been a slave in Maryland and emigrated here and met Eunice Brooks, who was actually Montauk and African American. And they settled here, had many children, and he built a home on Hazel Avenue that still exists today. And so many of the other family members lived in that area. We're going to speak a little bit more about that later this morning. But we're so excited that Gil was with us for so many years and touched so many lives here in the Amherst region. We know that he also worked, when he came back from a remarkable career internationally, he became sick, so he had to return to Amherst. He couldn't find a job, and so he actually started working at Amherst College, as his father had. And he got to know a lot of the students who were there, and actually one student in particular convinced him to start a jazz band, and he was the coach for those students, and many of them went on to have incredible professional careers. The most prominent was Stan McDonald, who recently passed away. And ultimately, Grampy was recognized at the Newport Jazz Festival during his lifetime, so I was so happy that he actually got acknowledgement before the end of his life. But we live in this wonderful age of Google, so if you'd like to hear him perform, you can Google Blue Syncopators. And so he is commemorated in Jazz Archives. He did recordings in the early 1900s. So just wanted to share a little bit of background because Amherst was such an important part of his life where he lived and saw so much over the course of the years of his life. He was born in 1896 on Hazel Avenue and lived here, his entire, until, of course, traveled in Europe, but came back here and made his home and saw so many things. So with that, I want to transition again to invite the Amherst Gospel Choir to greet us with another beautiful rendition.
There's a vision that we need. There's a word in the Bible that says, without a vision, the people perish. And Anika has had a vision and a series of fabulous. About irony. There's also a word in the Bible that says, these people are talking about peace, and there is no peace. They heal the wounds of my people too easily by saying peace. There is no peace. So we sing with vision and with an understanding of the irony of peace.
We will meet. Dr. Kamal Ali, who was a member of Ancestral Bridges and also our cousin, Kamal.
Let's go, Kamal.
Do we need this? You did?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I'll do it. This commemoration is basically about black veterans, you know? In researching my talk, I had to deal with a lot of the post-black veteran issues. That is to say, what happens to veterans when since 1776, they've been coming home from war, defending this country, fighting for losing their lives in huge numbers over time, without any of the rewards that one might think would accrue in terms of equity, in terms of freedom, accessibility, life-changing activities and opportunities. None of that occurred for the most part. And also in researching this, I thought I would have to spend a little time talking about just how bad it was. But, you know, when you've seen and studied and researched the lynchings, the beatings, the immolations of black men, women, and in some cases children, it's traumatic. I mean, growing up in this country with this paint job can be traumatic. When you're a little boy, I mean, I was born on Lebanon Street in the Black Bottom in Springfield, then moved to Quincy Street when some of my brothers hailed, for real. And then my father, who was a very successful musician and pattern maker, worked in Carlson's pattern shop, a unionized shop. Of course, in those days, you could not join the union. So when they went on strike, they expected my father to observe the picket line. Of course, he didn't. It was called a black scab, among other things. And the first time I heard my father curse was he was talking to my mother and said, yeah, I picked up a 2x4 and said, you son of a bitches, come on. This is my very staid and educated super musician composer father. But, you know, when I left Quincy Street and moved to 16 Acres, the trauma begins. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch an N-word by the tone. I'm not talking about necrophilia. And so I don't want to rehearse all that stuff with you here today, but if you want to know something about it, I do have a handout. I'm a professor emeritus. I do have a handout which gets really down and dirty with some of the calumnies that were inflicted upon our people from then to now. Does anyone remember the recent dragging of a black body from a truck through the streets of a southern city? Do you remember what happened? Well, I'll do that anyway. We'll pass that. The last time I was allowed to talk to you all in the cemetery, the sun shining brightly. After the event was up, one of my good friends and a brother who I love dearly kind of chided me because I mentioned something about the A team. That all of you, the young people that are here, and all Amherst, I suspect, neighborhood people, I refer to you as the A team. And it's not that I was trying to channel what's his name, Mr. T. It wasn't about that. I am a professor, so I was maybe subconsciously thinking about the fact that this was the best group of people I could imagine to talk to. I mean, what is the sort of characteristics of this crowd here? Young, old, experienced, highly educated, culturally diverse, ethnically diverse, not racially. I don't use that word ever, racially. It doesn't mean anything. It's a culture that beat you up in the face with and divide you. Race is a game, a gimmick, and it works for the most part. Has worked for hundreds of years. So I don't use it. I must admit, full disclosure, I do sometimes use the N-word around friends and brothers. Just saying. I'm shocked to hear that. But I want to talk about the A-team, this group of people who, as far as I'm concerned, you all, and I include myself in that group, we are probably the last opportunity that this great country has to to save itself from sliding or falling into fascism. I've been around for quite a while. I'm 79 years old, going on 80, hopefully. And that's quiet. This is my hero, or heroine. Full disclosure. And I took a few things I want to talk about this A group stuff. And why I felt that way on that occasion, 365 some odd days ago. I went to school here. I brought my family here after leaving Springfield when I was a young guy to move to New York City, where I joined my brother Junior, great musician by the way. I'll talk about that in a minute, a brief minute. So when I came to Amherst, because Bill Bromley changed the complexion of Westfield State, my institution, UMass Amherst, never to be well, I have to say, things have changed somewhat. But Bill Bromley was the guy who opened up the Amherst campus to people of color. Now, I remember my Uncle Denton lived on Amity Street, and when they were building those skyscrapers in Southwest, Uncle Denton said, I want to show you something. I went across the street, and I saw these huge towers. What the heck is that? Look like Manhattan. That's Amherst, University of Manchester, Amherst. It's changing. And I was thinking about coming back here to go to school. I was on my way, in spite of a very troubled high school career, to Columbia University, from which I was summarily dismissed. For a reason. And if I had to do it over again, I would do the same thing. Good friends with the Bursar there, and she got me into NYU and messed that up too. Because we were activists. A lot of friends of mine, mostly Jewish kids, it's New York, who were very, very radicals and were doomed and determined to change things. And I think some of us did, because that was the era where the Vietnam War was, not exactly, but it was a precursor to that. And certainly it's true that young people brought it into that horrific conflict. My cousin Ruben sitting right here, he knows, he was involved in that. I lost a stepbrother in that war, Norman Ferris. His name is on the plaque at Winchester Square, Mason Square in Springfield. But I do digress. I came here, New Africa House was happening. Bill Bromley put that together, Afro-Am, the Center for Racial Understanding, and dig the list of musicians. Max Roach, Archie Shepp, Majid Greenlee, Yusef Lateef, all of them performing on the regular for free. And the music that they were talking about through their instruments was all about revolution. We don't hear that word anymore, revolution, but that's what is needed. I'm not necessarily talking about a violent revolution, but that may be the issue, and that may be what transpires. In a country where there are more guns than people, and more individuals with those guns who are the problem in a sense. I hate to say that, but it's true in my humble estimation. They have taken the truth and turned it upside down and made it questionable. What is truth and what is not truth? And the head gang leader of that organized chaos was none other than the President of the United States, who, by the way, was a symbol, not the cause. Like my good buddy Dave Chappelle said, Donald Trump wasn't the cause of the turmoil. He was surfing the wave. Yeah. And it's very, very true. My beautiful, brilliant daughter, after Donald Trump came into office, said, Abby, I think we underestimated the nature and depth of white rage. And from that poured forth the Tea Party. And from then poured forth madness. Now more organized than ever, and more dangerous than ever. America was never asleep. They went to a sort of psychotic comatose. They don't need to be woken up, excuse me, my English teachers, in my head. They don't need to be woken up. They need, what's the word I'm looking for, when people are in a group of people that are all crazy, you can help them with this. They're a cult, and they need somebody to take them out of that cult and put them on what we would call in Islam, as-sirat al-mustaqim, the straight path. An intervention. That's what America needs. It does. And there's no group more positioned rather, and able and willing, I'm sure of that, to do that than our A team. That's all of us. Think about it. Educated, knowledgeable, committed. I see Black Lives Matter signs on a lot of the lawns in in this area. And some people poo-poo that. Well, that's these white liberals. You don't know those people, what they've been through that enables them to say that they want to do this and make it very, very clear what their position is. It's a form of jihad, by the way. If you understand Islam, and if you don't, I'll tell you right now. Jihad has been bastardized to mean that all the Muslims want to kill all the white people, all the Christians and Jews. And that may be true for about 1% of the Muslim population. It certainly is true of people like the Taliban who shot that poor girl in the head because she wanted to learn how to read and teach others to read. It certainly is true of ISIS. It certainly is true of all these radical groups that, of course, this country created, if you've done your homework. You understand where this comes from. You understand what Iraq was all about. Maybe some of you even understand what Ukraine is all about with respect to NATO and its expansion. And backing these guys in the corner. And now America wants to sell wolf tickets. Wolf tickets mean they want to be sort of wolf tickets. Tell me out. Aggressive. With China and Russia at the same time? Are you serious? Is the military-industrial complex that sure of itself? They can pull that out, make money at the same time, and keep the war culture going? Please.
Yes, sir.
Who is going to stop that?
Jeez.
Well, who stopped it in the past? Young organized people, coalitions. I was a kid, the Black Panther Party had a coalition with the Peace and Freedom Party. And together they essentially started a movement that did end up in Vietnam, the domino that was supposed to cause the domino effect. Vietnam would fall, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, garbage. How many lives were lost in this country? But how many lives were lost in Southeastern Asia? As a family, my family is like the United Nations. Mexicans, Jews, Portuguese, African American.
Yes, sir.
It's the only way to travel as far as I'm concerned. Only way to fly. Blended families. We are blended, all of us, whether we know it or not. We're all brothers and sisters. I don't care if you believe in Adam and Eve or Australopithecus. The point is, we're all related genetically. We're all our DNAs all meet at the same place in Africa. We are seriously brothers and sisters.
Yes, sir.
If you understand and you do your homework. So, in conclusion, because I'll be here all day with this, I can see what's going on. I've abandoned my notes. Oh yeah, I want to mention a few things about this 18 business. So when I came here from New York, and I have to say that I was, my radical points of view got me booted out of some very good universities, I have to say, but I did well at UMass. And I finished when I started for the first time here. And en route to doing that, I had a good friend named Begi Langa from South Africa. And Begi had a friend who was a white woman from Northampton. I said, come on, I want to make this lady man. She's real together. I said, yeah, it's a white lady from Northampton for what? Where the black people at? Where the Puerto Rican people at? Where the white radicals at? The young guys like me. I meet this woman. Her name was Frances Clark. So I worked with Frances. I just got rolled over by kind of like a wave. Frances was the kind of person, like my mother would say, she could talk the ears off of Billy Goat. Frances was talking about all the right stuff. Truly, loved that woman. Loved her dearly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Francis Crowe, Art Sorota.
Yep.
Got this great thing. Beautiful man. Went on to work in Zimbabwe, helped the people in Zimbabwe put together their constitution, much to the chagrin of Americans and the British and the French and whoever else was exploiting Zimbabwe at the time for their goodies. Mel King, Michael Felwell, John Bracey, Chet Davis, I'll go quick. Ray Jordan, the doyen of Western Massachusetts politics. Ray Jordan invited me to the State House because he was the first black person to convene the Electoral College. He was appointed by the first black governor of the state of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick. They convened to elect the first black president of the United States. Can you imagine the emotions in that room with someone like me? It was amazing. So I have to mention Ray Jordan, Ben Swan, and a whole lot of others. These are the people, again, that are part of what my conception of the A-team is all about. I taught at Westfield State for a long, long time, and every class I taught classes like Perspectives on Institutional Racism, Africana Studies, the revolutionary roots of black classical music, which I stole from Andrew Shep, and courses on a variety of courses. But in every course I taught, I was always trying to get this point across to my students. I want to challenge you and dare you to become activists. That when you leave this institution, you'll be the change that Barack Obama thought you could be. And in some cases, of course, America has a high tolerance for violence, a high tolerance for oppression. Globally, it does. But the more I travel a lot, I'm in Africa an awful lot, and other places in Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, and in Europe. This is the hippest, coolest place in the world, man. America, the more I travel, it's affirmed and confirmed in all of it. And it's because of people like this group right here. Not to slight anyone else, I'm sure there are cool people in the South. My cousin lives in the South, and he said, it's cool, man, it's all right. But I know he's not going into the rural South. People riding around with those trucks and them shotguns. I laugh, but it's really, really not cool. Anika's making faces because she was in Atlanta when I first reconnected with Anika. They were living in Atlanta. And I drove them from Atlanta. I drove Debbie and Anika, who's an absolute star in the craft, to Brooklyn. And I mention that because it's happened. I'm getting the high side. I have something to say about it, but close this. Anyway, we've got work to do. All of us. We can't just know what's going on and think that that's it. We've got to do something about it. We have to act. Some thump. For all of us, I know you guys are busy. I know you guys have silver hair like me. And the time has done its thing. And I've got aches and pains and arthritis and bones I didn't even know I had. And we got to keep doing what we're doing. And I'll leave it right there, except for one more thing. One more thing. Today is my cousin Billy and my Uncle Dudley's birthday. And although I don't want to compete with the gospel choir, I would love to lead all of us in a very short happy birthday canton in 3/4 time, so it doesn't become a dirge. And with your best voices, and I'll do it along in here. It's kind of like a waltz, 3/4 time. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear little Dudley. Happy birthday to you.
That was really special. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome to the podium our cousin Denise Jordan, who is the Executive Director of the Springfield Housing Authority. Denise.
It is an honor and privilege to be here, to wake up so early in the morning to travel all the way to Amherst from Springfield. I bring greetings. As we sit here today and we talk about Juneteenth, because that is why we're here, it's important to realize why we celebrate Juneteenth. We talk about freedom, and then we question freedom. But one of the things that I think I've been feeling today is talking about history and the importance of history. And for Black people, history is important because our history is often stolen, it's often misinterpreted, it's lost, sometimes on purpose, it's rewritten way too often. And for some people, they reinvent it and insert themselves when they weren't really there, which is why it's important to document and to write and to photograph. Because our history is so rich. There's reasons why people fought for Juneteenth, because people wanted us to know all the trials and tribulations that we have endured as Black people. And so for me, and I say Black because that encompasses everyone of African descent. Although I know I'm an American African, I'm a Black person. And so one thing about being a Black person, it's about being proud of who we are. Because who we are as a people. My cousin Kamal, Dr. Kamal Ali, spoke about all of the trials and tribulations that we have endured. But we're still here. And we are victorious. We are prosperous. We are savvy, educated, intellectual. Bring it, we'll take it, and keep on moving, because that's who we are as a people. So, as I listen to the words that everyone spoke about, I just think about our resiliency and how it's important that we celebrate things like Black History Month, for me, Black History Year. We celebrate Juneteenth. And, you know, for us, we're gathered here today, we celebrate ancestral bridges. I celebrate my cousin Anika for keeping our uncle, my great uncle, alive. I feel it's so fitting that we are here today celebrating Juneteenth on my uncle, which would be his 100th birthday. And so as I hear and we talk about Juneteenth, while this is, I think, the third, that's right, the third Juneteenth celebration that we celebrate here. And we know that it's been made a law here in Massachusetts, and my cousin Anika, wanted me to talk about this. But one of the good things is that we don't have to wait. And in Springfield, we didn't wait. I leave here today because at 12 noon in Springfield, the Juneteenth is having their Juneteenth celebration, and I will see members of the Peter Briggs Brigade there as well. This is the 18th year that we've been celebrating Juneteenth. Juneteenth is not new to us. And what we did not do is wait for a governor to make it a holiday, because we were already celebrating it. And so Juneteenth is near and dear to me in Springfield because Juneteenth was brought to Springfield to the Brethren Foundation. It was the brainchild of the late Raymond A. Jordan, former state representative Raymond A. Jordan, who brought it to the Brethren because he knew about Juneteenth. He said, we want to do it, and we need to do it here in Springfield. So there's so many people that say, oh, I started Juneteenth, whatever. We've been doing it. So this is what we do, right? And so what I would really like to do is share, because I was asked to bring greetings on behalf of my family as the grandniece of Dudley Bridges. I am his baby sister Mary's granddaughter, and I am here with her son, my Uncle Reuben, who came from Savannah, Georgia. Her extended family are the Braces. They live right next door. We talk about Quincy Street. You know, when we think about Quincy Street in the city of Springfield, because they're so territorial even still, I always say that people from Springfield think that Quincy Street was like the first gated community. And I know they always spoke about my dad comes from 6 corners. And so when my dad married my mother, they used to always say, how did he infiltrate and get one of the queens of Quincy? So in Springfield, we don't play about our neighborhood. We're real serious. But before I close, and we spoke about my Uncle Dudley, as he rests in power, and he's with the ancestors. I would be remiss if I would just like to ask my family, the descendants of Dudley Bridges that are here, if they would please stand up as we recognize our uncle we love so much. Babe and Ron Brace. So we are we're Dudley Bridges, and we are so blessed and grateful to be here. So thank you so much for allowing me to come all the way from Springfield as we celebrate this great man in our family. So thank you so much, and happy Juneteenth.
Wonderful.
This T-shirt, this T-shirt that I'm wearing was designed by my sorority sister from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, your very own Dr. Shirley Jackson Whitaker. I was supposed to get this morning, but I went last night and I hounded someone. I wanted to wear mine today so that I can celebrate this. And so, you know, red is for the blood, black is for the people, green is for the land, and yellow is for movement as we continue to overcome. Thank you.
I'm now absolutely thrilled to welcome to the podium our cousin, Anika Lakes.
Thank you everyone for being here today. I want to extend another happy birthday to Cousin William Harris and my grandfather, Dudley Bridges. I also have, there are so many people to thank that I'm not going to do, but I need to really acknowledge the entire Ancestral Bridges board, including Dr. Shirley Jackson Whitaker, who, after we leave here with the tours at Emily Dickinson, there's a concert at the Drake with Divinity Rocks, who's going to bring down the house for all of the kids. She's a Grammy-nominated artist known for opening up for Beyonce. And then we followed to Hope Community Church for Reverend Carlos Anderson and Shirley Jackson Whitaker to bring down the house. We really don't want to miss that. So being here today in this house is really significant for me. I grew up here, fortunate enough to grow up with my grandparents and great-grandparents. Amity Street, Hazel Avenue, Baker Street, Northampton Road, Snell Street. They were just regular places and spaces with people, and when I think about my ancestors, you know, I can hear them and I can smell them, and I am so honored to really be able to just help and be a part of continuing the work of Dudley Bridges, my cousin Danny Harris, our great-grandfather, or my great-grandfather, Gil Roberts, who really focused on the significance of the actual factual history, lesser-known history, Black and Afro-Indigenous history of Amherst. I have so many stories that I grew up with, but one I did not was knowing that ancestor Henry Jackson was really such an influence with, and on rather, the straw hat business, the once thriving #1 factory in the country here in Amherst. Henry Jackson was one of the first to bring palm straw leaves here to Amherst, where Black families and lower-income Irish families rather would bake hats for extra income. So growing up here, I did not know this. Art has always been my thing. And so, you know, my life had led me to become a milliner in New York City, and I had no idea that these roots were here, that the foundation of Black business and Black entrepreneurship is here in Amherst. And so I'm just so grateful for all of you and to be a part of Ancestral Bridges, because we will ensure that the youth from now on know the actual history here, the Black youth and Indigenous youth, that all BIPOC youth know the deep, rich roots of that where they're connected to in Amherst. And also with that, we want to give another tribute. Thank you so much to the Brace Brigade, and thank you to our ancestors. To our ancestors who rest in the West Cemetery, who were part of the 54th Regiment and the 5th Cavalry, who traveled to Texas to announce across plantations and into cities and announce the news of freedom. They are who connect the town of Amherst to its rich history, an important place in the history of Juneteenth. So again, thank you all for being here. And with that is my pleasure on this special day leading to another birthday tribute to announce our wonderful state representative, Mindy Young.
Well, you can't really follow Anika, but I do have some prepared words. First of all, thank you to the Amherst Women's Club for generously giving us this space. And thank you to Ancestral Bridges and Anika for creating so many series of memorable events for us to be able to celebrate Juneteenth this year and throughout the year, not just today. Recently, a friend shared with me his view that unless we can tell and understand the truth, we cannot remedy wrongs, address harms, make change, and make things better. And Juneteenth, in part, in addition to everything that we've heard today, is a day to recognize the necessity of recovering and restoring history. A day to confront the facts of our past and expose and share truths on the path to freedom. Today in this country, it's not just books that are being banned. In schools across America, history is also being silenced, confusing our past, and ultimately preventing us from moving forward. We hear about disturbing and harmful chapters of our history being eliminated from classrooms because they make some white people feel uncomfortable. Clearly, the effort to remember real history is literally under attack. And as a result, I really believe embracing these opportunities to share, learn, and understand our past is a revolutionary response and a form of patriotism. I'm so grateful to be with all of you today, to be in community that not only commemorates the historic nature of Juneteenth, but also uses the day to recover and embrace our past. I am grateful to Ancestral Bridges for its work to create these spaces for each of us to remember. The Civil War tablets, exhibits with photographs and historic artifacts, walking tours, lectures, art shows, and yes, street signs. The role of a street sign in designating and creating space for remembering and for acknowledging cannot be overstated. Ensuring that these spaces are identified and their value recognized, whether to celebrate milestones or mourn loss or acknowledge harms, is fundamental to the process of recovering our combined history. Thank you, Ancestral Bridges, and Anika in particular, for leading this effort. A simple street sign can create the space to remember. In his Nobel lecture in 1986, I looked it up on Google because now, as we were told, we all have Google. Elie Wiesel said, "Remembering is a noble and necessary act. The call of memory, the call to memory, reaches us from the very dawn of history. It is incumbent upon us to remember the good we have received and the evil we have suffered." Juneteenth is about remembering, confronting, accepting. So what's the value of a street sign? It's a conversation starter and a designation of that space. Thank you, Ancestral Bridges, for creating this space where we can remember our past, celebrate our resilience, acknowledge our harms, and repair them, and move forward together. Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of street signs, I would like to ask, we might get a little crowded up here, but if we have descendants in the house, will you please stand up, whether you're Bridges, Bateman, Bias, Thompson, Bosworth, whosoever, you know who you are, the first Black families and African families members, please come forward. I see you, child. Come on, Denise. Come on, Denise. Have you seen the tablets?
No, but I'm going to do that. No, I know they're there.
Okay. Yeah, what was that? Yeah, next page. Okay, everyone. All right. So, around 2000, around the year 2000, my grandfather, Dudley Bridges, was part of an initiative, many things, but really including also having the West Side District, including Hazel Avenue, Baker Street again, Snell, Northampton Road, forgetting one, but put into the National Register of Historic Spaces. He didn't do that for it just to be searchable on Google. So he passed in 2004, and it is my honor to be here with family and be able to honor and give him this birthday gift. So Lauren and my mother, would you please unveil? So just a last word, what is really significant about this is, Hazel Avenue, cover your ears if you're offended, was historically referred to as nigger lane. And, we have this here, we are reclaiming all sorts of things with this honor, bringing this here. And I also want to thank, about months ago, I went to Town Manager Paul Welkerman and said, what do I need to do for this to happen on June 17th, my grandfather's birthday, and it happened. So I want to extend that thanks, and please, when we're finished with this program, which we are about to be, please everyone come and take a look at these signs. I don't know the whole connection.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's very emotional for us because we all know that Uncle Dudley was so committed to Amherst and also to equity, and this was something he became really active around when he joined the board of the Amherst Historical Society. And when he discovered that the historic plaques that had been restored had not been an exhibit for decades. And he really was a leader in recognizing the contributions that BIPOC people, African American and Native people need to creating what Amherst is today. So this is a really important acknowledgement of all of his dedication and work. Today really would not have happened without the participation and support of so many people, and it's always risky to say thanks because you're always going to leave someone out, but I'm going to try to do that today. But I want to extend heartfelt thanks to Sarah Barr at Amherst College, the Emily Dickinson Museum, Gabriel Gould in the Amherst Business District, the Jones Library, Acting Chief Tang in the Amherst Police Department, Earl Miller in the Amherst CREESS Department, Tony Maroulis, Darren Two Feathers in UMass Amherst, the Mill District, Mass Cultural Council, Anastasia Ordenes in the Amherst Gospel Choir. All of you helped create this experience today and the programming that happens throughout the year. And of course, heartfelt thanks to Ancestral Bridges and their leadership, and of course, Nikki and all that she has done. And wanted to remind everyone that there's an ongoing exhibit at the Frost Library at Amherst College through this autumn. Be sure to check that out. And then also a heartfelt thanks to Debbie Bridges, my cousin as well, for all that she's done around the restoration and just want to remind everyone, we are going to provide transportation to the Divinity Rocks concert that you heard about from Nikki at 1 o'clock if you would like to go. And a reminder to please scan the QR code on the piano if you'd like to go to the Emily Dickinson House if you've not done that yet. And my gosh, thanks as well to Dr. Shirley Jackson Whitaker and all of her leadership. And we're so excited to see a preview this afternoon of your film at Hope Church. We're so excited about that. And so now we want to allow the 54th Peter Brigade to formally exit. They don't leave yet. We have more surprises.
imagine having
Carlos,
this
I'm gonna call
song
TJ.
duet.
All in soldiers.
Carrying all your gear.
On behalf of the Embrace Brigade, we'd like to thank you for having us here.
Thank you for having us here. We've been coming for the last couple of years, and we want to continue to come here and support this event, Ancestral Bridges family. And I'm a Brace. Peter Brace was an actual private in the 54th Brigade. That's my dad in the back. So we got the reenactment team. We're available. If people need us, give me plenty of notice at that time, and if you can make it, we'll make it. But thank you for having us.
Left, right, here. Left, right, here. Left, right, here. Left.
And I'm sure they've all worked up an appetite by all the inspiring words that we heard this morning and by today's experiences. So again, let's give a warm welcome to the Amherst Gospel Choir.
Into your life.